All right. Can everybody see the screen?
I can.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about personal freedoms, constitutional freedoms today. All right. Once again, the judicial branch organizer is here. If you click on it, it's going to bring up the organizer. And I have everything in there now all the way down through what we're doing this week. So just know that chapters 13, 14, 15 are what you're going to be looking at for the test. And I'm in the process of writing the test, and as I write the test, what I do is I go through and I make sure that what I'm asking questions about is information that's asked in that organizer, so that there's nothing new, no surprises, like that kind of stuff. And you have as much time as you want to take it. Hold on just 1 second. Mr. Miller is here and has a question.
Hi, sorry. I was actually wondering if you had an iPhone charger that I can borrow.
No, but check Miss Keegan's desk. She usually has one with her. Oh. I think Jubek's in there, but just if there's one there, grab it.
No, he's not in there. He's in Keegan's normal room.
Is it locked, Cam? Yeah. Here, come through this door. That should be open. There you go. Okay, sorry guys.
Is that the teacher that goes in the room next door?
No, that was Mr. Miller. He's down the hall a couple.
Oh.
Okay, so there's a really good article in there on your First Amendment rights. If we were in class, we would be reading this together. I would love for you guys to read it. I think it would be really helpful when you take the test. But if you don't, you're not going to get penalized for it. Okay, so we're talking about civil liberties and civil rights. So civil liberties are freedoms that the government cannot take away. Those you're talking about, for example, your First Amendment right to speech, assembly, religion, and press. Civil rights are protections granted by the government, but they're not necessarily in the Constitution. So that's something that's really important for you guys to understand, is that, no? Okay, sorry, Mr. Miller. It's really important to understand that liberties are things that are guaranteed to you. This might be really helpful for your organizer. These are the different First Amendment protections, and we're going to go through these a little bit more. And if you look at the Tinker versus Des Moines and look that up, so basically that situation was, it's a school thing. Freedom of speech protects people's rights to unpopular ideas, even if they criticize the government. Right to see, read, and be exposed to different points of view. What happened in that situation? It was during the Vietnam War, I believe, and some students wore black armbands to, I don't know if it was to protest the war, but it was a very little thing. The school told them they had to take them off, and they said that's a constitutional right of expression, and we don't have to. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that students may wear things like the armbands if they are not disruptive to the school situation. So with kids in high schools, it's a little bit different than an individual ability to have freedom of speech, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get going on. Freedom of the press protects the government from censoring information, as long as that information is true. You may see right now that there are things on Twitter being censored. Twitter is censoring things that are untrue or have no basis in fact. So that can be infringed upon if you're not telling the truth, but otherwise newspapers, books, magazines have the right to write what they want. The right to petition, you may petition the government for grievances or complaints. Freedom of assembly, you have the right to assemble peacefully. Sometimes you need a permit, but you still have that constitutional right. And freedom of religion prohibits government from endorsing or punishing based on religious beliefs. And that's kind of a big deal too right now. So we're going to talk about each of these in more detail, just so you guys know. Oops, shoot. Okay. All right, first one, freedom of speech. What restrictions, if any, should be placed on our constitutional rights and freedoms? Pure speech refers to verbal expression before an audience that has chose to listen. So books, art, dance, film, photography. Symbolic speech, use of actions and symbols in addition to words to spread ideas about. And they have Tinker versus Des Moines. And that's a picture on the right-hand side of two of the boys that were in the case. And then seditious speech, urging the resistance to lawful. Well, I can't see it now. Authority. Sorry, guys. There we go. Oh, what happened here? This got funky when I... Urging the resistance to lawful authority or advocating the overthrow of the government. So, can we do that? Yeah, if you don't act on it, you can disagree with the government. Now, if you actually have a plan to do something to take over the government, that would be considered against the law. But you see a picture of the Ku Klux Klan there. Do they have a right to assemble? What do you guys think? Anybody want to jump in?
Would it be different if they're assembling in like a malicious way?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. So they certainly have the right to assemble. They can wear their white hoods and burn their flags if they want. They can burn crosses if they want, as long as they are not doing it in a malicious way. So unfortunately, there are still Ku Klux Klan groups around the nation, and they do have the right to meet, to assemble, to speak to each other, as long as what they're talking about doesn't break any laws. So can they meet? Yep. Can they say things that are hateful? They can, as long as they're not using them against somebody else. So that freedom of speech doesn't just apply to things that we want to hear. I guess you could put it that way. There is a crash course video on freedom of speech that it goes into some of the details from the different cases. So if you're interested in learning more, absolutely watch that video on freedom of speech. Okay, geez. I had this all perfect on Friday. I don't know why it's not perfect right now. Let me try and present again. Okay. So, the freedom of religion, the Establishment Clause, there's a separation between church and state, meaning the government cannot infringe on our ability to practice whatever religion I want. We can believe whatever we want. But that also means the government cannot support, or a lot of times it ends up being financial things. They cannot give money to religious organizations. There needs to be a separation between church and state. There was some of that came out in the election, that, this country was founded by God-fearing Christian people, and that may be true. But in our nation right now, we have a mix of religions from all over the world. Christianity is still one of the large ones. There's a large Muslim population in the United States. There are Buddhists, there are Hindus. There are people that don't believe in God, and they have the right to not believe in God. There are people that have smaller religions. Native Americans don't really practice a religion necessarily, but they have their own beliefs in Mother Earth and things like that. Wiccans, which some people think of as witches, it's not really witches. They are also a very earthbound religion that needs to be honored when we're talking about freedom of religion. At the same time, the government doesn't have to give money to organizations that are religious in nature. Meaning, for example, Is there a church somebody in the room goes to that they want to share what church they go to in town?
I don't go to church.
You don't go to church. So Jess, oh, I'm sorry, what was that? Jess?
Hmm?
What did you say?
Nothing.
Oh, that's okay. Well, I'll just use, like, I go to St. Victor's Church. That's where our family belongs to, a Catholic church. We don't maybe go every week, but that's our choice because it's freedom of religion. So they just added on to St. Victor's Church. None of that money can come from the government. Even if a church is like on the National Historic Register or whatever, because it's still an active church, the government cannot give money to support building onto a church. Versus like our school district, we're going to be looking at going to a referendum eventually. That money all comes from the government. It all comes from taxes and things like that. So freedom of religion just means that the church and state have to stay separate. Once again, there's another crash course on freedom of religion. If you guys want to take the time to look at that, there's some good stuff in there. But I'm not going to. All right. Freedom of press, petition, and assembly. So freedom of the press. Censorship. The act of government prohibiting the use of publications of productions they find offensive or contrary to their own interests. So, can you write a book that's questionable?
No.
Absolutely. You can write a book that's questionable. You can write a book that says, it's confusing, sorry. You can write a book that says, that's about killing the president. Hey guys, just 1 second. Can you go out on the teacher one out there?
She was just asking me a question.
Oh, it's quick? Okay, it's quick. Okay. So you can write a book. In fact, I read a book. It was about an assassination attempt on a president. You can absolutely write a book like that. You can't have a plan for it yourself, but you can put that in there. There's a lot of books out there that are questionable or disgusting or pornography. People may or may not agree with pornography, but the truth is our freedom of press allows us to publish that as long as the people in it are consenting adults. Obviously, when it comes to children, that's completely against the law. But as long as it's consenting adults, most things are legal and can't be censored. Unless it's malicious and it's causing damage to somebody else. So a newspaper can't write lies about a politician, lies that can't be proved and can't be backed up, because that could ruin a person's reputation, which is called slander. So they can't do that. Prior restraint, censorship of information before it is published. Can that be done? And it depends on the situation. A lot of these depends on the situation. So depending on how sensitive the material is, like the Pentagon Papers there that you guys see on the screen, basically the New York Times wanted to publish it. The government said, no way, there's sensitive information in there. So if the information goes against like national security, obviously you can't publish that. But the people do have a right to know things. So it might be that something is published with some censorship in it, or it might be something that's published completely without any censorship. So, and once again, there's a crash course on freedom of press. No, I don't want to do that.
Why not?
I don't want to take their time doing that when they can do it on their own. What is happening? Oh boy. Sorry. I lost it. I gotta go back and grab it. The slideshow. So sorry about that, guys. I'm almost done too, because we're going to do those 3 today. Okay, so this freedoms discussion, this would be if you guys had read that article that's in the first page here, the First Amendment rights. Because we're online, I'm not going to ask you guys to do that. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter today, but definitely know that you will be asked some questions about those 3 freedoms on the test. And I think they're ones that you're familiar with, but I do honestly, truly think it would be a good idea to watch those crash courses. It would take you about a half an hour total. I know they talk fast, but he really goes through a lot of the information that I think is important for you guys to know, because this part of government, these are things that affect you guys every single day. There's been so much in the news with the Black Lives Matter protests. Even before that, with people kneeling for the flag. Can they do that? Absolutely, they can do that. Can the National Football League require them to stand? Yep, I think it was found that they could require their players to stand because they're doing it in their workplace. So because it's a workplace environment, things change. When you're in a workplace environment or a school, we can create certain protocols that you need to follow. But there should still be this, this freedom out there. So, like I said, these are things that do affect you. Do know that when you're under 18 and in a school, or even if you're over 18 in a school, you don't necessarily have all the same rights that you'll have as an adult. These rights do not protect you from things like, in a job, swearing at your boss or calling them a jerk and not expecting to get fired. Destiny asked, why not? Because when you're talking about a workplace environment, there are absolutely certain protocol that you have to follow, and you can be fired for calling your boss a jerk or worse. But can you get fired at work for wearing a black armband to show your support or something? Or think about all those little ribbons that are around that. I'm gonna get rid of the slideshow here and go back to here and stop sharing my Google Meet. Oh, yeah, stop screen sharing there. All the little, like the pink ribbon for supporting breast cancer or the yellow ribbon for cancer. Yep, you can wear those because they're not disruptive to the environment that you're in. LGBTQ pin, yes, you can wear that. Now at school, can you wear something with beer on it?
Yes.
Destiny says yes, but we all know the answer to that is no. So we definitely have restrictions depending on where we live and things like that. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to stop